Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's event with our friends at Mindbody. We will give a few seconds for everyone to log on. I see participants actively joining, which is awesome. While we wait, would love to know where everyone is tuning in from today. If you want to drop it in the chat. I am coming to you live from Livingston Manor, New York, in the Western Catskills Mountains. Someone from Nashville, Santa Cruz. Oh, I bet Santa Cruz is awesome this time of year. Charlotte, North Carolina. Oh, so many people. Phoenix, Austin, Seattle, NYC, Kansas City, Toronto, all over. Cape Cod. Great. Well, thanks everyone for sharing where you are. We are so excited to have you all with us today, and we're even more excited to be joined by our friends at Mindbody. So a few housekeeping things. We will be sharing the recording after today's session, as well as all of the info you need to know about Mindbody and how to explore their open roles. I'll also be dropping a link in the chat, so if you're feeling particularly inspired today, which we hope you are, you can get a jump start on seeing all the roles Mindbody is currently hiring for. We'll also have time at the end for questions. So if you want to drop them in the Q&A, feel free, or the chat, and we'll moderate them. So that is everything. So without further ado, I am going to hand it over to Regina, who is going to give us the inside scoop on what life as a Mindbodyan is like.
Awesome. So I want to share my screen, and let's see if I can get exactly what I want to share. All right, can you see this?
Yes, ma'am, looks great.
Okay, let's see if I can get a control going on. All right, good. If I do this, can you see this too?
Yep, all good. You're on the leading authentically side.
Perfect. And there were no screens that changed when I just asked, when I asked a new question. Did the screen change?
No, ma'am.
All right, good. Then I'm going to jump right in, and I'm going to say good morning to this community. My name is Regina Wallace-Jones, and I am the Senior Vice President of Insights and Innovation at Mindbody, which is a pretty awesome team. It includes all of our research functions, so user research and market research. It also includes product marketing. It includes UI, UX. It includes all of our data mission, so our AI ML mission, as well as our data science mission, which focuses a little bit more on business analytics as opposed to product analytics. It includes our technical program management function, and then it also includes my global partnerships and platform products team, which has responsibility for all of the Mindbody APIs. So it's a pretty cool group. We like to consider ourselves to be the hub team of the product engineering organization. And we have a lot of fun inside of this group. So today, oh, by the way, I'm also the mayor of the city of East Palo Alto. And I forget to say that all the time, but if you're Googling me or searching for me right now, that typically pops up first because I just have way more public interactions. So it's the same person, I just happen to be dual careered. Today, I'm going to talk about leading authentically through adversity. And I'm going to do it largely through storytelling. I've chosen storytelling because it's one of the most powerful ways to connect. It's one of the easiest ways for you to remember what I said. And the third reason that I'm doing it this way is because we're all working on something. And for now, I happen to be working on storytelling. So I want to jump right in and make sure that I define a few words that keep us aligned on what we're actually talking about. So the first is authentic leaders. These are the leaders that are self-actualized individuals. They're aware of their strengths and limitations and their emotions. They also show their real selves to their followers, and they realize that being self-actualized is an endless journey. It's never complete. The second word I want us to get our minds wrapped around is triumph. This is a great victory or achievement. And the final word is adversity. This would be difficulties or misfortune. So my goal for today is to be real, to be relatable, to be reflective, to be rounded, and to be resoundingly clear in the stories that I'm telling. So the first story, on education and academic training, I frequently get asked, how did you know what to study to reach your career success? So picture this. I'm 18 years old. I'm graduating from high school. I'm a first-generation college student with two parents that both opted out of undergraduate education for their own reasons and their own stories. I've grown up in the San Gabriel Valley. I sort of know what I'm good at, but I'm beginning to see the orthogonality between my interests and the areas where I show strength in my intellectual capacity. Said differently, I can see that I'm great at math and science, but I'm uninterested in math and science professions. So my first answer was to seek degrees in both areas. And my pursuit was to find a life that allowed me to actualize in both. By the way, I do not see myself as successful in either, but I do see myself in an incredibly strong pursuit. And so I studied engineering as an undergraduate, and then I studied public policy as a graduate student. I very much believe that my tech background is sort of the guiding energy that has driven my professional pursuits. And my master's in public policy has very much driven my public pursuits. And I'm a local official because it's the last place where you can do both and be both. In fact, you're expected to be both, and I love that. On having a family, let me just move us forward in our slide deck here. There's a reflection that I want to bring forward only because Chadwick recently passed away. And this is, when I stand before God or whomever you think of as the ultimate maker of makers at the end of my life, I would hope that I would not have a single bit of talent left and could say, I used everything that you gave me. That's my pursuit. On having a family, I'm frequently asked the question, how have you found balance in being a mother and a professional woman? The implications, of course, of being that I've chosen to do both and that I've chosen an impossible road. My answer to this is that from the moment that my ancestors touched the soil of America, women worked and raised families. It's a 400-year reality. And given that the conditions were much less favorable, I consider myself blessed in many ways to come from survivors that made a way to work and raise families. Having said that, I recognize the spirit of the question, and I do acknowledge that it is difficult at times to manage the tremendous conflicts that are placed on our capacity, our creativity, our attention, and most importantly, our time. So my secrets are, I've got an all-in partner. Choose wisely. This is one of the most important decisions that you'll ever make. The second is, be open to supportive assistance. When I had my children, my mother-in-law moved in with me. And for 2 years, I felt like I was in competition with her. At the 2-year mark, I realized that we were better together. And now I know that having her with us has saved our lives. The third thing I would offer is Be creative about gifting your children with the experiences that you and only you can offer them. For example, my kids are great makers. Let me show you this. Let me stop right there. Not there, right there. My children are great makers. I used to spend a lot of time agonizing over the times that I could not spend with them. But I've let all of that go. I have decided that it's my job to give my children what I have. And so this past, in the last 2 weeks, my youngest daughter launched a market research plan. What she was trying to do was figure out from the market how she could improve on a touchless hand sanitizer dispenser that she had built as a prototype. And so I was sitting in my bathroom on a Sunday, taking a bath, trying to just detox and unwind from the week. And she came into the bathroom feverishly with a little desk that she put together and a laptop and a chair. And she said, "Mommy, you've got to teach me how to do this market research survey now, because I really want to bring my sanitizer pump to market." And so we sat there and created her market research survey, which she sent out to a bunch of potential customers, and they gave her great feedback on how to improve her design. For me, that moment was one of those moments of truth. I may not be able to do library time with her during the week. I may not be able to make her volleyball game at 3:00 in the afternoon, but I can give her exactly what I can give her and feel really good about that. She was thrilled to learn about market research with her mama, and now she has a new skill that she'll forever attribute to me. Never mind that it was in my tub time. My third story is about this community of women. Given that it's a community of women and allies, I will also share that having children was probably one of the most major adversities that life dealt me. As context, I was not rich, but felt that I grew up with enough. I was not thin, but I found ways to work with my honestly bestowed assets. I had loving and self-sacrificing parents, and I had a reasonable head on my shoulders. Prior to this point, life had taught me that if I tried hard enough, that I could have everything that I wanted, except my journey to parenting took 8 years, 8 years longer than I planned. And it did force me to embrace it sometimes, no matter how hard we try, that certain things just don't happen. Faced with the stark choice I felt that I had at the time between high stress and high anxiety, I gave up my career. And ultimately, I birthed 2 great young women that show only the tiniest glimpses of being mine. And I'll forward here a picture of them so that you can see only the tiniest glimpses. Let's see if I can get this right. There we go. Obviously, the pictures are making my files move a lot slower. I was simultaneously haunted by all of the stories about women leaving and never coming back. I was also worried about being frowned upon by men and women who never left. This was the first time, however, that I hypothesized that strength and anxiety were my enemies, and that I possibly had to give up for a spell to grow in a different area of my life. And what I'm proud to say is that 13 years later, as I look back on this time, I believe it was my best choice. I also believe that I was given this experience so that I could share it with the many who will be faced with this choice in the future. As long as we live, there is a path. So I have 2 more stories, and then I'll wrap up and open up for questions. On leading and finding the perfect boss, and this is fairy god boss, so this obviously matters. For a substantial portion of my career, I did not relate the ideas of authenticity and work. Work was the place that you came and you became what you needed to be to earn the money that you needed to earn. That's what work was. Work was not the place where authentic expressions or identities were conveyed or shared. This way of thinking about work has prevailed for many decades, particularly as women have continued to increase participation in the workforce. But the very obvious challenge is that workplaces have largely been molded around the preferences of men. So when we leave our authenticity out of the equation, the workplace is both robbed of our extraordinariness, and more importantly, it's never challenged to change. We know that workplaces must continue to evolve to be welcoming to all of us. So I am now on a journey to bring this person forward every day. And in so doing, I have found that one, bosses really matter. There are many more mediocre to terrible managers than great ones. There are also really great ones out there. Pick the boss who believes in your capacity and your potential. Two, when you find out that you've got a terrible boss, run fast. You matter too much to sustain a poor match. But be aware of you. If you're always running, it might be a sign that you're either picking poorly, which should be fixed, or you might be running away from something in yourself. I've got rich examples of both, but I'm choosing to share the story about myself because that's the person that I have the greatest control over. So here's my truth. I've run from 2 managers in my career. I thought they were absolutely terrible. They were poor champions. They were poor at developing talent. They were poor at communicating, poor at relating, poor at seeing me, period. But if I'm honest, I was also not self-aware at how bad I was at building rapport, at asking for what I needed, at communicating with confidence and clarity, my progress and my aspirations, and also understanding what it means to be the holder of scope for any leader. This last part was incredibly important for me to learn, and figuring out strategies for keeping my leader in the loop, leaving space for them to productively steer and constructively invest in my work were things that I had not mastered. And it turns out that life is the best teacher because I'm keen on being a good manager. And I see in my direct reports all of the challenges that I have had with this very thing. How to own your incredibleness while leaving space for others, including your boss, to add to that incredibleness. I'm a work in progress. We're all a work in progress. But the most important person that we can control is ourselves. So my final story is about leading through pandemic, social unrest, and wildfires. As a mayor, one of the most common questions I get asked is, what's it like to lead in all of this? Pandemic, social unrest, natural disasters. You know, when I ran for office, I was talking about housing, transportation, gentrification, technology, and building community one neighbor at a time. And 3 months after I was sworn in as mayor, we were enacting shelter-in-place orders and preparing to weather a storm that I had never seen before, much less led. Here's the thing. If any elected official tells you that they were made for this moment, I would be really suspicious. On the other hand, this is a moment made for the most resilient among us. In COVID, I threw away my platform and I focused instead on how to keep people safe, particularly our most vulnerable residents. In social and racial unrest, I found my voice and created space for my residents and my family to grieve and protest while we were also being safe. And amidst the wildfires, I have found many ways to bring cities together in more profound ways. So here's my reflection. I am a mayor in a working class community. Together, we are really proud of our DNA. We are largely frontline workers, service workers, and laborers who are unduly exposed to COVID-19. In fact, we are leading my county in infections. When work is at risk, the best thing that public officials can do is swarm to figure out how to keep everyone safe, but in particular, the most vulnerable. So while my state is figuring out how to transfer rent debt to consumer debt, I'm thinking about how to remove the possibility of debt altogether. We are a majority community of color that has frequent protests with no harm done to participants, businesses, or residents. The voice of people must be heard. So our job is to provide ways for this to happen safely and productively. We offer masks, we provide water, we deploy city staff, and we do our part to both amplify the voice of protests and, more importantly, to lean into problem solving. Why do I say all of this? I say all of this because I and we are all uniquely positioned to make contributions in our unique way, both in our professional endeavors and also in our private passions. And we have everything in us to understand and propose reasonable paths forward. I'm finding my voice in this, and I encourage all of us to do the same. So I'm going to close with one final thought, which I think is unique and special about Mindbody. Leading authentically is as much about others as it is about ourselves. And in particular, I want to focus on this season being one that requires that our mental and our emotional health be cared for. For a good 60 days from March to May, I definitely felt like I was losing it. The lines between work and home were blurred. I wasn't getting sufficient physical activity, and I had not found my legs defining my foundational strength to lead anywhere. After several weeks of moving through life in a haze, here are the things that I found helpful. The first, I added evening meditation. I have frequently been terrible at meditating. Controlling my thoughts and keeping them focused is not a strength of mine, but in COVID, I have found my strength and my peace in adding a meditation practice. The second is I added a 3.5-mile walk with a local senior citizen. It's a feel good while doing good moment every day. The third is I started podcasting. The fourth is bath time is my friend. I take it frequently. And the final is there's a whole world to discover in books, and I am rediscovering again the magic of reading. None of these practices are extraordinary or remarkable, but together they've saved my life. And so I just want to end by saying it's our duty to pay attention to this and every other way that wellness matters to us. This is a specific and unique attribute that I feel we have at Mindbody because we happen to be a wellness business. And I do find that my coworkers and my colleagues, as well as my superiors, spend a lot more energy and time focusing on this as the center of gravity out of which all of our strength radiates. So with that, I would like to stop, hand it back to our facilitator, and be with you for questions.
Thank you so much, Regina, for sharing your story, and it was so inspiring. Also, you're a mayor. How awesome is that? Can we just give a virtual round of applause? Not only is she an amazing career woman, but she's leading the community. That is so cool. And I loved the story you shared with your daughter about helping her with the market research. That is so cool. How old is she, if you don't mind me asking?
She's 10.
10. Oh my God. Budding entrepreneur right there. I love it. So we're going to open it up for questions for Regina, but we also have Omar, who's with the Mindbody recruiting team. So please use the Q&A function. Everyone is singing your praises, Regina, in the chat. I don't know if you can see. But while everyone puts in their questions, I would love to just kick it off. If you could, you shared so much of your personal story, but I'm curious too, how has Mindbody created a culture that's really allowed you to thrive, not only in your career, but you're clearly juggling a lot with your family. I loved the family photos, and then being a mayor on top of that. How has Mindbody you and created a culture to allow you to thrive?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I have been in tech and in the corporate, just sort of the corporate ecosystem for the last almost 25 years. Mindbody is really the first company that I felt like I could both honor my professional aspirations, be present in my personal aspirations to service, to work in a service capacity to my community, and to also be paying attention to my sense of health and wellness. These three things are really, really important, it turns out, for all of us to have a place where we can be ourselves and bring all of the things that make us to our work. What I also believe is that no workplace is ever perfect. We are all, as I said, a work in progress, as our workplace is a work in progress. What I do find to be unique and distinct about Mindbody is that it does have a culture around consciously evolving, which to me matters because it means that when we find something that is not quite working or not quite, in sync with what we wish or hope or would feel proud of wearing on our chest as a symbol of our pride, that we don't hesitate to change it. And I think that that is a remarkable characteristic for a workplace to have, and one that I really appreciate working inside of.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, we talk a lot about that at Fairy Godboss, how companies are evolving, and even, employees, no matter what level you're at in the company, each of us have power to make real change, whether that's getting involved through your ERG, expressing a challenge to your manager, etc. So I love that. So Golnar, I think this question will be most appropriate for you, but Regina, please feel free to chime in. So one of our participants would like to know about your software engineering requirements for hiring. This person says she's almost done with her bachelor's, but doesn't have the typical amount of experience most companies ask for software engineers.
Yeah, absolutely happy to answer that, Mary. So I would say, in terms of how strict we are about requirements, I mean, one thing I will mention is a lot of times, first of all, I would say apply, because it's always worth taking a chance and putting yourself out there, and you never know. It really depends on the level of the role and the team that's hiring. And at Mindbody, we also do definitely believe in investing in high potential entry-level talent. So yes, if it says on the job description we're requiring a bachelor's degree in computer science completed, you may not get a call back right away for that role. But if you have other experience and projects listed on your resume that stand out, there's still a chance we might be able to consider you and have a conversation with you. So I think it's worth putting yourself out there, applying for roles that maybe you don't have every single requirement checked off. Still worth putting yourself out there and applying. I don't know if, Regina, you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I only want to offer that we really lean into the full spectrum of engineering talent. We are both, super keen on working with interns and new college graduates inside of our team. We also are very openly embracing of individuals who are career in transition, and maybe they were doing something before, but are interested in picking up more of a technical, and particularly a coding background now. And so, for us, I think it's really just about bringing our best talent forward and building the most richly diverse and capable teams that we can possibly build. And so to the individual who is just about to finish up college, we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you before you finish up college, because for us, that's like the perfect time to join Mindbody. And I want to stress, for me, because I was one of those who was a return from career at some point, that the idea that we are an open place for all kinds of individuals during, throughout the continuum of their journey as a professional is one that really makes Mindbody quite an exciting place to be.
Yeah, I love that. And I love what y'all are saying about investing in younger talent and just to go for it, because I won't quote the data exactly because I'll get it wrong, but it's that famous saying where, a male will apply for a job if he meets 50% of the requirements, and women only apply if they meet 100. But I think to your percent, Goldner, you don't ever know unless you go for it. So I think this is a great question for both of you. And I'm going to paraphrase because we're getting a similar question from a lot of the participants. But we have quite a few career transitioners in attendance today. So what advice do y'all have specifically when applying with Mindbody to stand out and put their best foot forward if they are making a bigger career transition?
Yeah, so my general perspective there, and I know Goldner is going to have some great things to say here as well, is that we focus a lot less on where you've been and what you've done in the past. I think what we're really trying to discover is what you know right now in this moment that can be additive to our aspiration as a company to continue to be a leader in the world of wellness. So my general perspective is, of course, there are going to be people who are in transition. Of course, there are going to be people who went down one path and decided that they wanted to go down another. Of course, there are going to be people that took a break because life just said, take a break, right? The brain doesn't stop. The brain is a vital part of our being that continues to grow and develop and be really robust over time. My guidance is just to bring it all in. To bring it in and lay it all on the field, focus on what you know and how you can contribute, and don't let the voices in your head about the transition or about, what the past was or about why someone else who has 10 more years of experience doing the same thing is better than you. Leave all of that at the door and just come in and lay what you know now on the field. And I think Mindbody will meet that and hear that and do its best to match that with the roles that we have inside of the enterprise.
Yeah, absolutely, Regina. I mean, I think that's great advice. And I mean, building a diverse team, hiring diverse talent doesn't just mean ethnicity and gender. It also means people with different career paths and different backgrounds. So not necessarily like 10 years of direct experience in this field that you're applying for. So yeah, I mean, I will say just don't get discouraged. Sometimes it just takes time. You want to get creative about how you're applying for these roles. So yes, sending in an application, but also trying to connect with the recruiter on LinkedIn, doing a little research to find people who might be on that team that you can network with. Going to meetup groups for the field you're trying to transition into. So getting kind of creative with that and just accepting that sometimes you have to be patient, things take time. And yeah, sending out that application for sure. I will address that right now it is also a uniquely tough job market. So many people unfortunately have been put out of their jobs due to COVID. And so it's definitely a big pool of people that are also applying for these roles. So it is competitive, but once again, I just want to reiterate, like, getting creative, networking with people in your community, and focusing this time on building up these skill sets and learning and better preparing yourself to make that career transition.
Yeah, love that. So let's look at the flip side and do a bit of a 180. Some of the participants would like to know what opportunities are available right now that y'all are looking for someone in mid to late stage of their career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. And are we limiting to engineering roles, or are we looking across the whole spectrum of hiring?
Are you asking me, Regina? Yes. I think we have quite a few different roles open across more than just engineering. I think we have like a couple of roles in customer success, some in marketing. So I think we have about 30-ish positions open in the US right now.
Yeah. So to complement that, you know, my general perspective is this. So we are not necessarily placing talent in the talent continuum against certain roles. And I'll give you a great example. We did some hiring in Pune recently, which is where one of our centers of excellence was. And we had a woman who applied for a role. She was, you know, much more senior in her career, but she had taken off 10 years to raise her children and make sure that they were firmly planted in elementary school before she came back. And so when she applied for an entry role. And she worried, she actually talked about this in her interview. She worried that, you know, she was much further along, you know, from a, you know, maturity perspective, that many of the people who would be competing, if you will, for the role were new college graduates, and she just felt older. But she also felt like it was the right role for her to be applying to, based on what she knew and what she knew she could contribute. She was hired into that role, and I think that it probably relieved her head to know that she was, you know, on the right track in terms of thinking about that role. And I think it was a huge sign for Mindbody that she was brought into that role as well, because it really did affirm that for us, we're really just thinking about who's going to make the best contribution to that role in that moment, without really thinking about where you are in your, you know, your continuum of life. That said, we do have a series of positions that are open. I know in my team alone, I just opened a series of intern positions for those who are, you know, on the path to graduating but haven't. I just opened 2 roles in market research and 2 roles in user research as interns. I also have a technical program manager role that is currently open inside of my team. And very soon we'll be opening a product marketing role as well. So, you know, from that perspective, we're pretty wide. For our engineering roles, quite a few of them are going to be attrition-based hires, which means that if someone is leaving a role, we'll likely go back to the market and try to refill that role. And so as I think across the teams now, I believe that we have a couple of positions that are open in engineering on the marketplaces side of the house. And we also have a couple of product roles, product manager roles that are open on the fitness side of the house. And then I believe that we also have a few mobile engineering roles that are also available as well in the US. Because of COVID, because of shelter in place, we've been very, very keen on creating borderless hires in many cases. So the fact that we are headquartered in San Luis Obispo shouldn't stop anyone from considering a role. We're trying our best to open ourselves up to the possibility that our next great hire is going to be any place in the United States. And so we want to be very open to that as well.
Yeah, we have a broad array of like anything from junior positions open to more senior level positions. So and anything in between. But yeah, within engineering, there's definitely a lot of flexibility in terms of location. So I just encourage you to apply, even if it says there's a different location.
Great. That's a perfect segue into our next question. So given the pandemic, how has Mindbody been transitioning to remote work? And how are you establishing a remote work culture?
Yeah, so I'll definitely speak personally. And that is to say, for me, I was actually hired as a remote executive. As I said, I'm the mayor of East Palo Alto, which is about 3.5 hours away from where Mindbody is headquartered. And the only way that I could be anything but remote would have been to immediately resign my elected position and to move. And I didn't, I'd worked really hard to be elected. I didn't want to give that up. So I was brought on as remote, but I was not the first, and I'm not the only remote employee. There are many. Inside of COVID, we actually all convinced ourselves that we could be quite effective and productive working remotely, partly because we didn't have a choice, right? We needed to be sheltered in place to protect ourselves, but also technology has really evolved over the last 20 years to really enable very robust interactions that we probably couldn't conceive of well in the last 20 years. So, a lot of the engineering belief has been that you can't innovate and be fast unless you're in the same room, right? And so we really want to create constructs that sort of force people to be coming into the office every day and, sort of working on innovative concepts inside of the same room with, whiteboards and sticky notes and, all of that goodness. A lot of that we can actually recreate virtually and do it really, really effectively. So, from our perspective, our priority, I think, as an enterprise has been to obey the law, keep people safe, let them work from home, but to not be anything but resilient as a business. We still have to, make sure that businesses are operating. We are the back end of many vital and vibrant businesses inside of COVID. We even pivoted really quickly to launch a virtual wellness product, which was not something that we were actively shipping prior to COVID, but we knew if we didn't give our practitioners a way to ship their trade into the homes of people who could no longer come to gyms, who could no longer come to yoga studios, who could no longer come to the places where they were otherwise coming to get their, their wellness engagement and their wellness interaction up, these businesses would die. And so we pivoted really fast as a team in a virtual environment to create a virtual wellness product that allowed our customers to really get out there with their clients and make sure that even in COVID, even in shelter in place, they were able to survive and thrive in continuing to engage with their wellness practitioners. All of that was enabled by remote work. Through remote work, and it's something that we're pretty proud of. We also work across multiple states and many countries around the world. So in particular, I'll call out San Luis Obispo, but we also have a presence in San Francisco. We have a presence in San Diego. We have a presence in Austin, Texas. We have a presence in New York City, New York. We have a presence in Phoenix, Arizona as well. And then we have global points of presence in Pune, India, in the UK, and also in Australia. So, from our perspective, we believe that wellness happens everywhere. We're doing our best to power the world and to connect the world with wellness globally. And we certainly are very excited about being able to connect in with all of the talent that we can across the nodes around the world.
Yeah, Regina, I think you pretty much covered everything. But yeah, I think we pivoted both externally with our customers and internally as a team. We've worked with distributed teams before. We're a global company, so we had the infrastructure in place to make sure that remote collaboration is something that works for us with Zoom and Slack and all of those things. And then externally with these businesses, of course. And I think it's super exciting what Mindbody has been able to do so quickly with a virtual wellness offering. So yeah, I think you pretty much covered it.
Awesome. So everyone, we have just about 10 more minutes for questions, and we have so many questions, and we'll try to get it to as many of them as possible. Picking up on a similar theme that I'm seeing from some of the questions, what type of qualities are you looking for in your team, Regina?
Go-getters. No, I'm just kidding. For me, I am one of those leaders, and I might be different, but I hope I'm not. What I hope is that I'm leading a wave of change for all leaders globally. I tend to really focus on individuals that show signs of strength in one or many areas, and really working on deploying those areas of strength against our business needs and our business priorities. Why do I say that? I say that because all of us are strong at something, right? There's no sort of, pattern or figuration that any of us should show up in, except clear about where our strengths are. And I really think of it as our job together to take and deploy those strengths against the mission of our company. I also say that because a lot of leaders lead from lack, right? They lead from what you don't have. And then we spend endless energy and time agonizing over how we can get or seize or claim these things that we don't have. I tend to lead from the opposite place, which is to understand together where you have the most sign of strength, and to deploy that strength against the enterprise. Now, to specifically answer your question, I run insights and innovation. We are the hub of product innovation for the organization. What does that mean to me? It does not mean that we and only we can innovate. In fact, if that's the principle that we express, I believe that we have failed. Our job is to get our entire company into an innovative mindset. So right now, one of the big passion projects that we're working on is designing for diversity. What does that mean? Well, we subscribe to design principles, right? Those who are familiar with the D School and design thinking, this sits at the heart of how we do product development. But we also believe that this isn't something that should start and stop with products. We can take the same principles, solving with empathetic understanding of the users, the clients, the community for which we are problem solving, and coming up with solutions that are co-created but specifically designed to solve those problems. That's at the heart of what we're doing. You can take those principles and you can apply them to any number of business practices and business problems. And we've decided to deploy our skills, talents, and capabilities against diversity over the next month and a half. That's super exciting to me, right? What it takes is creative energy. What it takes is a can-do spirit. What it takes is a willingness to take risks, right? This is not actually an area that any of us have actively practiced against diversity before, but we know that we're very skilled at what we do for products and product road mapping. And if we can take those skill sets and apply them to other problem spaces, maybe we can be successful in helping to lead a new frontier and a new wave of change for businesses like ours and others in the industry. So that's our hope and our aspiration. And we want to bring people forward that are committed to doing just that inside of our products. And for our people and in the communities in which we serve.
Awesome. Also, a few folks have asked, and I know it probably varies between teams and roles, but in general, what is the interview process like at Mindbody? What could an interviewee expect?
You've got this one.
Speak to that one, my area of expertise. So now everything is obviously virtual. We're not doing any on-site in-person interviews, but a recruiter will review your resume, reach out to you, and you'll have a introductory phone interview with the recruiter, just getting a better understanding of your background and some logistical things. And then after that point, we do have a couple of pre-employment prerequisite tests that we send you that you would complete on your own time. It takes about half an hour. There's a personality test and a cognitive ability test that are basically giving us a better idea of your problem-solving abilities and your strength areas. And then after that point, it's typically a pretty streamlined process where you would meet with a hiring manager or a senior member of the team over video chat for an interview. And then if it's a technical role, you might have a hands-on coding challenge at that point as well. And then you would have a final round of interviews that would happen back-to-back in one day over Zoom instead of being on-site in person. But we understand everyone's in unique situations right now, so we also have flexibility with scheduling that over numerous days and things of that sort.
Awesome. So we are getting close to time. And just a reminder to everyone on, we'll be sharing this recording as well as open roles at Mindbody and on Regina's team specifically that you can explore and hopefully apply to. But before we close, I would love just to hear from each of you, why is Mindbody a great place to work in your opinion?
So you know, as I said, for me, I've been in this ecosystem for the last 25 years almost, and so I've seen the inside of Facebook, I've seen the inside of eBay, I've seen the inside of Yahoo, I've seen the inside of startups, and I've also seen the inside of nonprofits. I've sort of you know, walked through a number of different environments and led and also worked as an employee. Over that period of time. Obviously, we all take our own observations, but I think the thing that is most special about Mindbody is that we've got a mission. Like, who would ever argue that wellness for the world isn't something that we should all care about and we should all be aspiring to be a part of? We've got great culture, right? Again, that consciously evolving characteristic is so important, because it means that at the moment that we see something is not quite right, that we all sort of swarm around trying to make that thing better and trying to create a more perfect version of ourselves, that we can pivot really fast, right? I mean, again, look at inside of a pandemic. Pandemics are one of these things that either strengthen your mission or they give you permission to lay down and die. And Mindbody has chosen to perfect its mission inside of the pandemic in a way that I think is really, really extraordinary. And I think the biggest and most important thing is that we do welcome our employees, our people, our customers, and our communities to be their authentic selves. In fact, part of our mission is to help you get there. So who could ever argue that the combination of these things aren't sort of the best set of variables that you could possibly bring together to make a pretty fantastic work experience? For that reason, I'm a big, big endorser of Mindbody.
Amazing. Yeah, Regina, I echo everything that you've said, and maybe we're biased, but the same things that brought me to Mindbody are what have kept me here. And being a mission-driven company where we're working towards a greater purpose and helping people lead healthier, happier lives. And that keeps you motivated every day. And it's a great culture where I've noticed that the people I work with and collaborate with are actually really invested in the work that they're doing and excited about it. And so that's really unique to find. And then our core values, I think, are so unique for a tech company. They include, being humble and helpful and consciously evolving, as Regina had mentioned. And it's really rare to find a tech company that, one, lists something like being humble as part of their values, but also actually lives it. There's a lot of change that happens at Mindbody based on feedback that we get from team members, and everyone's always willing to help people out and listen, and you can bring your full self to work. So I think those are some of the things that definitely make Mindbody a great place to work.
Great. Thank you both so much for, sharing information about Mindbody, what life is like there, and for Regina sharing a bit of your personal story. So many great comments and questions. So thank you to everyone in the Fairy Godboss community who joined us. And with that, we hope all of you have a wonderful rest of your afternoon or morning if you're on the West Coast. And thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Mary. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.